So that's the shed. Even saying the name, the shed, just makes my body have an actual physical reaction. So the street that I'm walking down right now is the street that I would walk from the school to our house, and it's about 3 blocks, and I've had so many nightmares from this street because growing up, walking home from school, which I did every single day, was a nerve-wracking thing. Was my dad's truck gonna be in the driveway? This is the house that I grew up in. It wasn't blue or didn't have the tan, it was all white. That little house right there, we would call the shed. And there's actually two sheds, but the bigger one was the shed that we would be more scared of. Seeing my dad's truck at the house was scary because I didn't know, was he going to be sober, was he going to be drinking, and there were just so many unknowns, so many uncertainties. If I walked over here to this side of the street, I could see the driveway, and so about a block away I'd be able to tell if he was home or not. And then being on this side of the house definitely has a lot of triggering memories, and yeah, just seeing that side of the house. I see some good memories, like we had a trampoline that my sister and our neighbor all jumped out from the second story onto the trampoline, and we weren't supposed to do that. And so it was just, memories of us being so playful and adventurous. But yeah, the blue shed used to be white. Yeah, so that's where my dad kept his alcohol, his bottles of Jack Daniels and his cases of Budweiser beer. That's where he would go and do work, and all his tools were kept there. We were not allowed to go in the shed, and we didn't want to ever, although sometimes curiosity crept in, and when my dad would be at work or on drinking binges, we would sneak in there to see, like, what is it, like, how is it possible that he goes in the shed and then he comes out a different person, a different man. And so I do remember, I think Sunny and I snuck in there, and that's when we learned that that's where he kept his stashes of alcohol. Yeah, so whenever we were playing outside in the yard, which we love to do, we would be very, very diligent, or I would be very, very diligent of listening for the shed door opening or closing. Because if you heard the creaking or the slam of the shed door, you had to stop playing. And now it was a matter of detecting, were we needing to run? Were we needing to go get in another adult? We were assessing things completely different. And so occasion my dad would come out and we wouldn't hear the door opening or closing, and we would be in the middle of play, and I would look up and I would see my dad, and his glasses would be down and his hat would be crooked and his pants would be sagging, and I knew, oh yeah, he's not the same man. And the experiences that we had would be, yeah, just scary. I have so many dreams on this track. Running. And it was like I was running, I was always running. from something. And so it's really freeing to know that I'm not running from anything. I can be on this track and just run with peace. You are so faithful. You are so good, God. To my 11-year-old self, I would say that you didn't do anything to deserve this. That you are totally lovable. And that there is a future awaiting for you. That has peace. Like you've never experienced as a little girl. And I would say that you are not obligated to repeat what you've experienced. You're not obligated to this life. You deserve an amazing man who loves Jesus. You deserve living a life of joy and healing and abundance. And don't let anything that you've experienced as a little girl determine who you are or what you think you're worth or not worth. You're strong, and you're going to be able to help so many other people. That's what I would say. My worst nightmare had just come true. I'd soon be trapped in a new place. No safety net of people I could run to, with a man I despised and feared. I didn't know where I was running, but I had enough anger fueling me that I could sprint for hours. As I sprinted and cried past every house, I wondered if they saw me, but I didn't care. I reached our park, where I'd spent countless nights playing basketball with friends until the town curfew horn blew. It was a place I felt safe. I knew everyone who came to the park. I stopped, still crying, now trying to catch my breath, fell to my knees and pounded the ground. God, where are you? I screamed. My heart was beating so fast, my face was hot, my head hurt from all the crying. You've completely abandoned me. God, when my dad drinks again and becomes dangerous, who will I run to? I won't know anyone. I hate you, God. I wish I never pursued you. It's a lie that you love me. Mr. Johnson lied to me. You're not a good God, I said inwardly. I rubbed tears and snot off my face and then got off the ground. Whit, it's time to toughen up. I have to stop trusting people like Mr. and Mrs. Johnson who gave me false hope. I've got to stop caring about people. I'm stupid for letting people get close to me. That's why I'm in this horrible situation, I thought as I felt my heart numb. Suddenly I felt more powerful as the anger grew and my heart hurt less. The new idea of closing off my heart was now my new hope. I'd figured out how I'd handled the fear and sadness of my move. I'd cut off all my love for the people I grew up with. As I allowed the anger to stir, I felt more determined to never let anyone get close again. It was stupid of me to trust people the way I had, since no one really cared about me. If they had cared, I thought, I wouldn't be moving. Someone or God would have rescued me because they knew my situation. Do you hear me, God? I said, I hate you. I shouted to be sure there was no confusion, that I wouldn't be pursuing him anymore. It felt powerful to say out loud. My decision was made. I went back home compliant. That night when I went up to my bedroom, I grabbed a stack of my journals from under my bed, tearing page after page out, lighting them on fire, and flushing them down the toilet. I'll no longer be writing to Jesus, I thought. This was the idea that came to mind when I was 13 years old, feeling the biggest, like the final straw that broke the camel's back, the final disappointment that just felt too big to bear. And now in hindsight, I can see how that felt, that level of power of anger, choosing to cut off my love for people and for God. But it was the biggest lie from the enemy that prevented me from building relationships or keeping relationships that meant so much to me, and then later prevented me from being acceptable or available to receive love and to give love. And so I just want to say that if you're dealing with temptation to allow anger to close your heart off to love, which is vulnerable yet so necessary, that it is a stronghold for the enemy to come and make a huge home in that will only cause more pain and suffering. And so for my 11-year-old, 13-year-old self, no, I don't feel any condemnation. I feel sad for her because I know that it was, the lie is that it's not going to be painful to cut yourself off from loving people who love you, but it still does hurt. And so the pain is there either way. It's just a lie that it's going to hurt less. And so I don't condemn her for choosing that. It was the best choice she could make. She didn't have any other reason to think otherwise. And there was a lot of evidence that it was true, that just loving people was leading her to this path, that it was the love for people and trust with people that led her to this horrible place of despair and disappointment. But I would say that relationships aren't meant to give us the hope. Only God is meant to give us hope. That's what I was running to. That was my second home. My third home. That was my home where I would play till the 9 o'clock curfew horn blew, and I would want to still play basketball up and down the courts. It was the place that I got lost. I stopped thinking about all the heaviness, all the responsibility, all the trauma. I have lived an incredible life, lived in some awesome places, summited mountains, done things that people don't even think is possible for them. And in that moment that I read, you can't see far into the future. You can only see what the little bit looks like it's going to be, the week to follow. And so I think it just gives the perspective that no matter what you go through, there's always hope. There's always possibility for the future that goes beyond your imagination. And if someone would have told me that as the little girl, that would have been helpful. I think that would have actually been helpful. It would have been hard to grasp, and it would have been hard to believe. But I think the belief is accessible by saying that your past is really meant to connect you with the world. I would say that my past gives me access to connecting me to other people who have experienced childhood trauma and disappointment and hopelessness. And honestly, as I sit here just talking out loud with Jake filming, I would go through that. It's worth it, because at the end of the day, I want my life to have value to other people, and there's a lot of people that can relate to my story, and I want to be able to connect with them and say, hey, I've been on that side and I've been on the other side, and there is always hope that is so much brighter than your current moment with the Lord Jesus Christ.